Hey, my friend. So, I'm a laid-back kind of person, right? Of course, I have my quirks and my silly moments like anyone else, but the majority of the time, I just like to chill and observe. However, I didn't always live a calm life, right? Most of my early adulthood, my personality and my reality were constantly butting heads. And so today, I want to talk about the steps I took to design a calm life. And more specifically, there are 3 habits I had to break to make that happen. So if you're craving more peace, more clarity, and more intention in your life, this is for you. First things first. 10 years ago, I started my journey, my minimalism and intentional living journey. One of the big reasons I decided to fully commit and go down this path was because I wanted to reinvent myself. And, there are different reasons that contribute to why I wanted to reinvent myself, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole today. However, what I will say is that part of that process for me involved creating a calm life for myself, because for a long time I felt like I was always trying to keep up with work, with commitments, with responsibilities, with the pressure to do more, to be more, to prove more, right? To fit in. And no matter how productive I was, or how well I managed my time, or how put together I tried to appear, something always felt off, right? Like I said, my personality and my reality were constantly butting heads. And, here's an example to help paint this picture for you. Whenever friends and family would ask me how I'm doing, my answer on the surface was always, I'm good, right? There was very little backstory. There was no context. It was just surface level. I'm good. But behind the inflection in my voice and the dimly lit smile on my face, there was a whole lot of frustration and overwhelm. Because my mind was cluttered, my environment was cluttered. The days felt like they were just blending together, and my internal peace, that felt like something I had to earn. Eventually, I hit my breaking point, which was right around the time I decided to walk down this intentional living path about 10 years ago, like I said. And what I realized was that the problem wasn't my schedule. I understood that some days were going to be busier than others. Sometimes I was going to have a longer to-do list, and that was just part of the routine, to be expected. So I kept digging. And what I realized was that the problem was my habits, the things I was doing every day without even noticing, the habits that were quietly stealing my peace and pulling me out of alignment with what I cared about. You see, we're all given 24 hours in a day, and how you spend that time shapes your life experiences. You know this just as well as I do. So I knew I had to start making some changes that would help me design a life that felt calm, grounded, and true to my values. And so I took a good look at my habits. There were 3 in particular that stood out and became the obvious starting point for me. And those are the habits that I decided to break before branching out and focusing on other things. I digress. So let's walk through these habits together.
Habit 1. Breaking the guilt of prioritizing myself. The first habit I had to break was the guilt I felt anytime I prioritized myself or did anything just for me. See, I've always been a giving person, and as far back as I can remember, I've always been pretty selfless. And so I was putting everyone else before me. I was saying yes, even when I didn't want to. I was showing up when I felt empty. I was giving so much of myself to my job and my career. I was bringing work home. I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do. To be a good person, a good friend, a good listener, a great employee, right? I was giving. And anytime I did decide to take time for myself, I felt guilty in a way. And it's hard to explain, but it felt like I had to justify it, or that I had to make up for it later. And because of that, I learned a lesson the hard way. Prioritizing yourself isn't selfish, it's responsible. Because if I'm not well, emotionally, mentally, physically, if my cup isn't full, then I can't show up for the people I love or the work I care about in meaningful ways. So the top priority for me was breaking this habit of guilt. And the way I decided to do that was starting a new habit of just checking in with myself, asking myself questions like, how am I feeling today? What do I need today? Where's my headspace today? And then giving myself permission to follow through on those answers, to make the necessary changes based on those answers. Because otherwise, what's the point? I can just continue to allow guilt to get in the way of my peace, right? I've already been doing it for so long, so I can just continue to do that, to continue to give so much of myself to everyone and everything, except for myself. But that wasn't something I was continuing. It was costing me entirely too much. And quite frankly, I was tired of it. So I had to break this habit of feeling guilty for prioritizing me and my needs.
Habit 2, saying yes without considering the cost. The second habit I had to break was saying yes to everything without really thinking about the cost. And here's what I mean by that. Like I said, I'm a laid-back kind of guy. I like to chill and observe, and sometimes that means I'm quiet. In past years, my quietness was mistaken as being too nice, and that was because I had really blurry boundaries. This kind of goes back to the first habit I talked about. I was always giving so much of myself. So I was responding to every message right away. I was saying yes to different requests, even if I didn't have the bandwidth for it. Other people's urgency was becoming my responsibility. Every aspect of my life started to feel very cluttered. And honestly, it didn't even feel like this was a bad habit per se. It just felt like this is what you do. You be helpful, you be available, you be agreeable. But what I wasn't doing was protecting my peace. Like I said, my thoughts were cluttered and my time felt like it was always spoken for. In hindsight, when I look back on this from the perspective I have today, the reason why certain aspects of my life were a hot mess was because I welcomed that with open arms. I wasn't setting boundaries to protect my peace. So I had to learn how to draw clear lines in the sand, how to set those boundaries to protect my peace. I wasn't setting boundaries to push people out, but to create space for what mattered. If my cup isn't full, I can't show up for the people I love. I can't show up for the work I enjoy in meaningful ways. So I had to learn how to draw a clearer line in the sand. And to be honest with you, this wasn't easy. I had a hard time with not trying to disappoint people. I didn't want people to think that I wasn't helpful or that I was selfish. I didn't want people to feel like I didn't care. So this took some time. What I did is I took some time to journal and reflect on what aspects of my life, where in my life these boundaries were missing or really weak, and how could I start to rebuild them? What actions can I take? What mindset shifts can I create for myself? What things can I declutter? What things can I change about the way I think about my lifestyle or my habits? What can I do to start to rebuild some of these boundaries? What I realized was that the more I let others' demands dictate my time, the less I had to give when it truly mattered. Eventually, I built up the confidence to say, you know what? These are my boundaries, and that's okay. Everyone else is just going to have to understand that I have boundaries. I'm going to protect my peace now. I'm not perfect. I'd be lying if I said that I was. And sometimes, to be honest, this is still a work in progress for me. I'm working on this every single day. Like any skill you develop, you have to continue to work at it to maintain it. So, I'm not perfect, but I'm miles ahead of where I was. Now I'm protecting my time, protecting my environment, and protecting my attention because that's what peace requires. And when I do that, it means I can give more of myself when it matters. I can show up for the people I love. I can show up for the work in meaningful ways.
Habit 3, breaking the habit of constant busyness.
The third habit I had to break was constant busyness. And something about me that I didn't realize was just how much of my day was filled with movement, but not meaning. And maybe you're in the same boat, right? Where you're constantly giving so much of yourself to everything and everyone. You're trying to multitask, you're switching between different projects. Between all of this giving and doing, there isn't a moment where you feel present. You just feel like you're busy all the time, right? And for me, this felt like I was stuck on autopilot mode. And again, this is a lesson I learned the hard way. And that is, when you spend your days on autopilot, you miss your actual life. And so this is why defaulting to busyness was a habit I had to break. I had to learn how to start defaulting to being present. And I want to share a quick story with you because I often like to draw a connection between ideas to help you really visualize and understand what I'm explaining. So if you have a few moments, I promise it's relevant. My son is at that age now where he's really starting to show interest in a lot of the childhood games that I enjoyed when I was a kid. Things like dodgeball, Simon Says, and I Spy with My Little Eye. But one of his favorites right now is the game Red Light, Green Light. And I don't know about you, but this is definitely one of my favorite childhood games. Anytime the person who was playing the traffic light would yell green light, I would just take off and run as fast as I could. And then when they would yell red light, I'd try to freeze and stop in place. I'm sure you can remember how fun that game was, right? I can't be the only one. But see, as I started to grow up and grow older, I started to treat life the exact same way. I spent so many moments in that green light mentality. Go, go, go. Give, 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 give. Accomplish this. Hustle harder. Work harder. Bring your work home with you. Give so much of yourself to everything and everyone else. Just go, go, go. But what I had to learn, right, was how to embrace the red light moments. I had to learn how to slow down, to treat the pauses not as interruptions, but as invitations. Invitations to reflect, to breathe, to be present, to eat a meal without multitasking, to have a conversation without my mind being elsewhere, to go for a walk without thinking about what's coming next. And I'll tell you this, some of my most peaceful moments, especially these last handful of years, have come not from changing my circumstances, but from just being present for the life that I already have. And when I realized that, it was a complete 180 for me. I stopped defaulting to busyness, and I started defaulting to being present. Because again, if I can't show up for the people I love or the work I care about in meaningful ways, then why does this matter? I'm trying to design a calm life for myself so I can prioritize the things I care about. And if I care about certain things, that means I have to be present for those things as well. Like I said, the lesson I learned the hard way was when you spend your days on autopilot, you end up missing your actual life. And that was a punch in the chest when I had that realization.
To recap, these are the 3 habits I had to break. 1. Guilt around prioritizing myself. 2. Weak boundaries. 3. Constant busyness. Let me tell you, none of these disappeared overnight. I'm not a magician. If I could, I would, trust me. But I can't. Instead, it was small changes, repeated consistently, that led to a calmer and more intentional life.
Now, it's your turn. So if you're serious about this journey yourself, if you want to design a calm life of your own, if you want to live with more intention, more clarity, and prioritize the things you care about, then I want you to start small. Pick one habit, make one shift. I also want to invite you to check out my community. Inside, we're a group of professionals and creators who are committed to living lives aligned with what we care about, so we can show up for the people we love and do the work we care about in meaningful ways. So if you want that support, if you want that accountability, I'll leave a link in the description below or in the show notes. But beyond that, I want to reassure you of something. Your peace is worth protecting, my friend. A calm life is not something you just stumble into. It's something you design. Now, if you want to go further down this path, and you need a good reminder that the word no is a positive experience and a complete sentence, then check out this video here, where I break down the luxury of doing less. I also share 2 examples from my life of projects and opportunities that I was presented with that would have brought me more, but I said no for the reasons I explain. Stay true to you, my friend, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.